Tesla has lost its position as the world's biggest seller of electric vehicles. The Chinese car maker BYD is now in top spot after its sales rose by nearly 28% last year to 2.2 million.
Last year, BYD officially overtook Tesla to claim the top spot as the world's biggest seller of electric vehicles. This chart shows the scale of the turnaround. In a single year, China produced over 30 million cars, a volume that outpaces the combined manufacturing output of the US, Japan, India, and South Korea. To understand the weight of that shift, we have to look back to the 1950s. Back then, Detroit was the undisputed center of the automotive universe, pumping out nearly 75% of all vehicles globally. At that exact same time, and well into the 1980s, China's passenger car infrastructure was practically non-existent. The country was the kingdom of bicycles, where barely 1 in 1,000 people owned a car. Going from 0 domestic passenger cars to global dominance required a deliberate, highly aggressive leapfrog strategy orchestrated by the state. To understand the motive behind this leapfrog, we have to look at China's greatest structural vulnerability. To fuel a traditional automotive economy, Beijing had to import roughly 75% of its crude oil from foreign nations, like Russia and the Middle East. A staggering 80% of imported oil must pass through a single, narrow geographical choke point known as the Malacca Strait. This creates a geopolitical nightmare. If conflict broke out, a foreign blockade at this exact bottleneck could instantly suffocate the Chinese economy. Beijing needed a permanent bypass. Scaling an electric fleet offered a way to eliminate the need for foreign oil in the massive passenger transport sector, shielding their economy from that specific maritime risk. For China, building electric cars allowed them to trade a reliance on vulnerable foreign trade routes for absolute energy security. The blueprint for this independence was drawn up in the 1980s. Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping officially declared the automotive sector a pillar industry, the mother industry that would drive their economic future. Deng opened China's massive, untapped consumer market to Western auto giants, but with a strict condition. Any foreign company wanting to sell cars in China had to form a joint venture and unconditionally share their proprietary technology with a local Chinese partner. Beijing paired this with a strict localization policy. They incrementally forced these foreign companies to source the vast majority of their steering components, engines, and materials from local Chinese factories. Because of these mandates, local Chinese engineers and line workers received a multi-billion-dollar education in top-tier Western manufacturing processes at zero cost to the state. In just a few decades, this Trojan horse strategy converted a massive population of unskilled laborers into a highly skilled, fully integrated supply chain powerhouse. As the global industry began shifting toward electric energy in the 2010s, China realized the real leverage was no longer in the vehicle assembly. The real power was in controlling the battery materials. They utilized the Belt and Road Initiative, a state project designed to fund infrastructure in developing nations, to quietly secure critical resources around the world. Take Indonesia. China poured over $9 billion into the country, effectively capturing upwards of 95%. They ran a parallel playbook in South America's lithium triangle, investing another $16 billion to dominate the extraction of the lithium required for almost every modern battery cell. But extracting the raw ore was only step one. China mandated the construction of massive local processing plants at these overseas sites, ensuring that the refined materials flowed exclusively through networks controlled by Beijing. By monopolizing the supply of refined battery components, China guaranteed that no other country could build a modern EV without relying on their supply chain. Back at home, the Chinese government artificially engineered domestic demand. They made gas cars incredibly difficult to register through strict lotteries, while offering heavy subsidies and free license plates to anyone buying electric. But this safety net had an unintended side effect. Domestic Chinese EV makers grew lazy, relying heavily on government handouts rather than pushing technological boundaries. To fix this stagnation, Beijing deployed the catfish effect. In business, this means dropping a highly aggressive foreign predator into a tank of sluggish local fish, forcing them to swim faster to survive. Allowing Tesla to open a wholly owned gigafactory in Shanghai was the ultimate catfish maneuver. The arrival of the American giant terrified complacent domestic brands, forcing them to upgrade their software and slash their prices. In less than 10 years, the result was a transformation that saw Chinese brands go from laughingstocks to global leaders in manufacturing precision and battery efficiency. Blinded by the promise of the Chinese consumer market, Western automakers inadvertently trained the exact rivals that are now dismantling them. The fallout of this strategy is playing out right now. While legacy Western companies struggle with long product cycles, Chinese brands are aggressively flooding Europe and Latin America with highly advanced, affordable EVs. Because they control the raw materials and receive heavy state subsidies, these Chinese firms routinely sell their vehicles internationally at prices that undercut standard manufacturing costs. Inside China's borders, this overproduction has triggered a brutal price war among the roughly 129 domestic EV manufacturers currently operating. Experts estimate that by 2030, this environment will consolidate the market, wiping out the weaker players and leaving only a handful of globally dominant megacorporations. Through this multi-decade operation, China deliberately shifted global geopolitical dependency. They swapped the world's reliance on Middle Eastern oil for our reliance on Chinese technology. The 21st century will be ruled by whoever controls the transition to green energy, and China now owns the mines, the processing plants, and the factories that make that transition possible.